Right now, somewhere in Australia, there is a bloke standing in a dealership forecourt signing paperwork on a ute, absolutely convinced he has done his homework. He has watched the ads. He has read the brochure. His mate Dave reckons it's a ripper. And in about 18 months, he's going to be standing in my workshop, staring at a quote that'll make his eyes water, asking me why nobody told him. This list is for that bloke. 15 utes, ranked bad to catastrophic. Let's save some people some money. I'm 53. I've run a country garage for 32 years. I've had more utes through this workshop than I could ever count, and I've watched good, hard-working people get burned by bad metal, bad engineering, and frankly, very good marketing. I don't have a dealership behind me. I don't have a sponsor. I've got grease under my fingernails and a long memory, and that combination is exactly what this list is built on. A few things before we start, because being straight with you is the whole point of this channel. I'm pulling from Australian recall records, federal court proceedings, ACCC rulings, owner forums, Consumer Reports data from America where relevant, and 32 years of seeing what actually comes through a workshop door in the real world. Where the data is American, I'll tell you it's American. Where it's a workshop pattern, I'll tell you that too. And look, some of these utes are no longer in production. I'm including them anyway because the second-hand market is full of them. In fact, some of the most dangerous entries on this list are sitting on car sales right now with a fresh detail and a big smile. You need to know what you're looking at. The regret scale. Here's how this works. Bad means annoying and survivable. You'll have moments. You'll spend some money you didn't plan on, but it won't ruin you. Ugly means you'll feel it in the wallet and wonder why you didn't do more research. Some of these will test your faith in the entire concept of buying a new vehicle. Catastrophic means I'd personally walk up to a stranger in a car park and hand them this list before they put a deposit down. These are the ones where the regret isn't occasional, it's structural, it's baked into the engineering, and there's no good ending, right? Let's count them down. Bad tier, annoying, but survivable. Number 15, the GWM Canon. I want to be fair here because fair is the whole point. GWM topped Australia's satisfaction survey in 2024. The ute and the tank are earning genuine respect, and I've said that publicly. But the Canon is the one I keep getting asked about, and the honest answer is it's a mixed bag, and the mix isn't always in your favour. The early Canons had infotainment systems that would restart themselves mid-drive like a Windows computer from 2003. Software patches helped. But here's the pattern I see in the workshop. Owners who bought on price alone because the Canon... A quick word before we go on. Most people spend thousands of dollars repairing cars long before they actually need to. Professional mechanics have known for decades that a handful of simple habits can make almost any vehicle last far longer. And I've gathered 101 of those insider secrets into a book called The Mechanic's Bible. I won't mention it again. If you'd like a copy, the link is in the description. Seriously undercuts the Ranger and the Hilux, often didn't account for the parts story. GWM's Australian dealer and parts network is still maturing. If you're in a capital city, you're probably fine. If you're 300 kilometers from the nearest dealer and something goes wrong on a Sunday, you're not fine. And nobody on earth has a decade of Australian fault data on these yet. I've said it before about the Chinese brands. Not bad. Unproven. And unproven at number 15 is still better than what's coming. Number 14. The Volkswagen Amarok V6. Hear me out before you throw something at the screen. I know the Amarok V6 is brilliant to drive. I know. It's genuinely the most car-like ute experience you can have, and anyone who tells you otherwise has never driven one properly on a long highway run. But brilliant to drive and smart to own are two completely different conversations. The V6 TDI is a complex engine in a complex vehicle, and complexity is expensive the moment the warranty expires. Volkswagen finished dead last, 21st of 21, in Australia's own satisfaction survey. And while some of that is Dieselgate history and DSG baggage from the smaller cars, it still tells you something about how the brand is landing with Australian owners overall. Here's my honest advice. If someone else is paying for it, meaning a company car with a maintained fleet, the Amarok V6 is a wonderful thing. If you are paying for it yourself out of warranty in a regional area, you are one injector problem away from a very bad month. Buy it with your head, not your heart. And if your heart insists, at least buy the extended warranty. Number 13, the Mercedes-Benz X-Class. Yes, I know it's dead. Mercedes pulled the pin on the X-Class in 2019 after 3 years because sales were so bad the factory floor was apparently quite relaxed about the whole thing, but there are still a few thousand of them floating around the used market in Australia, and people are still being tempted by the badge and the price drop. Here is what the X-Class actually is. It is a Nissan Navara D23 wearing a very expensive suit. Same ladder frame, same suspension, same diesel, same gearbox, all the Navara's mechanical quirks, wrapped in a 3-pointed star that costs a fortune to service and whose parts are increasingly hard to find now that the model is discontinued. I'm not saying the X-Class is a disaster on its own terms. What I'm saying is you're paying Mercedes money to own a Nissan's mechanical reality, and when something goes wrong, finding a panel or a trim piece is getting harder by the year. If you see one on car sales and your pulse quickens, take a breath. The badge is not the engineering. We've talked about this. Number 12, the Ford Maverick. The Maverick is not officially sold new in Australia, but the grey import market has a few of them wandering around, and I get asked about it often enough to include it here. Small, front-wheel drive based unibody construction, no proper low range, modest tow rating by Australian standards. Look, in America, where it was designed for, it makes complete sense. Affordable, efficient, practical for a certain kind of buyer, but the people importing these into Australia are often doing it because they want something different and they genuinely believe it can do Ute things. It cannot do Ute things, not Australian Ute things anyway. If your idea of Ute ownership involves a boat ramp, a dirt track, a loaded trailer, or anything beyond the absolute basics, the Maverick will disappoint you in ways that feel personal, and getting parts for a grey import when something does go wrong is its own adventure. I'll leave it at that. Number 11, the LDV T60. The T60 is the cheapest way into a new dual cab Ute in this country, and that fact alone sells a lot of them. I understand it. When you're looking at a Hilux price tag, and then you see the T60 sitting next to it, wearing a fraction of the number, the temptation is real. But the ACCC is currently taking LDV to court, alleging more than 5,000 rust complaints on UTs they had advertised as durable and tough. I'll keep that tied to the court case because that's exactly where it belongs, and I'm not going to get ahead of a finding. What I will say is this: that case exists, it is real, and buying a vehicle while its manufacturer is in active ACCC litigation over the very thing you're buying it for, durability, is a risk that belongs in the bad tier of this list. At minimum, parts availability is improving, but still patchy outside major centres. And much like the GWM, the long-term ownership story is still being written. The difference is there are already some uncomfortable chapters. Ugly tear, you'll feel it in the wallet. Number 10, the Renault Alaskan. The Renault Alaskan is another one of those Utes that looked good on paper and then had a quiet cry in the corner of the Australian market for a few years before Renault quietly stopped selling it here. Another Navara underneath. Same story as the X-Class, different badge, different interior, same bones, but the Alaskan has one extra problem the X-Class doesn't. At least Mercedes has a large, well-funded dealer network that can service nearly anything. Renault's dealer footprint in regional Australia is thin, genuinely thin. I've had customers drive 4 hours for a scheduled service because the closer dealer closed. That is not a small problem when something goes wrong. The Alaskan also never really sorted its NVH, meaning the noise, vibration, and harshness that Navara owners have complained about since the D23 launched. It's not a deal breaker in a city. On a long country drive, it becomes the only thing you can think about. Good UT, wrong country, wrong dealer network, wrong tier of the market to compete in. Regret is almost inevitable. Number 9, the Mitsubishi Triton MQ. I want to be precise here because I've been complimentary about Mitsubishi's current generation Triton elsewhere, and that stands. The current one is a much better vehicle, but the MQ series, the generation that ran from roughly 2015 to 2018, is a different story. The MQ Triton had a well-documented rear-end crash rating problem that became a proper public conversation. ANCAP gave the MQ a 3-star adult occupant rating, which is the kind of number that follows a vehicle around for its entire life on the used market. 3 stars. On a vehicle Australians put their families in every single day. The mechanical side was also only average. The 2.4 diesel has its fans, but it's not a particularly tough or refined unit compared to what was available in the same class at the same time. Servicing costs aren't ruinous, but they're not cheap either. The MQ Triton was a vehicle that deserved better engineering than it got, and the owners who bought one new paid the price, while Mitsubishi worked out the answers on the next generation. That's not good enough. Number 8, the Isuzu D-Max pre-2020. I know exactly what the comments are going to say, and I respect it. I put the Isuzu at the top of my list of vehicles I'd buy with my own money, and I meant every word of that. But that's the current generation D-Max, the one from post-2020 with the updated 4JJ1. This entry is specifically about the older generation, and it belongs in the ugly tier for one specific reason: the injectors. Around the 150,000 to 200,000 kilometre mark on the pre-2020 D-Max, injector wear becomes a real conversation, not guaranteed, not universal, but common enough that any mechanic who's honest with you will say, get them tested before you buy a used one. Injector replacement on a diesel is not cheap. And if the previous owner used poor quality fuel or skipped services, that timeline moves earlier. The bones of the vehicle are excellent. I've said that and I mean it, but the pre-2020 D-Max requires more diligence when buying used than its reputation sometimes leads people to believe. The reputation was being built on the older 4JJ1 and the newer one simultaneously, and that created some confusion in the market that has cost some owners money. Know which one you're getting. Number 7. The Toyota Hilux 2015 to 2020 diesel. And here's the one that'll cost me half the comment section. I said at the top of this channel, and I will say it every time, Toyota is number 1 on the hard data globally, and I'm not walking that back, but this is not a Toyota video. This is a specific Hilux diesel video, and the record here is clear. Between 2015 and 2020, Toyota sold around 264,000 Hilux, Prado and Fortuners in Australia, fitted with a diesel particulate filter the Federal Court of Australia found was not of acceptable quality, clogged filters, lost power, white smoke. Toyota lost the appeal. That case is still working through its compensation phase as of 2026. Now, the engine underneath was never the problem. The 1KD diesel is a strong, proven unit, and I've said that too. It was the filter setup, and Toyota has since fitted manual regeneration buttons and extended warranties on the affected models. But if you're buying a used Hilux from this generation right now, and there are tens of thousands of them on the market, you need to ask specific questions about the DPF history before you hand any money over. A Hilux from this era without a clear DPF service history is not a bargain, it is a gamble. Number 6. The Volkswagen Amarok TDI 400, different from the number 14, different era, different engine, different set of problems. The earlier Amarok, the 2.00 biturbo TDI 400, had a timing chain that gave owners grief on a scale that made its way into Australian owner forums, German owner forums, and eventually into extended warranty conversations with Volkswagen dealers. The timing chain tensioner on these engines could fail earlier than it should, and when a timing chain goes on a modern diesel, it doesn't quietly suggest you pull over. It takes the engine with it, catastrophically, expensively, and in the worst cases, suddenly. I've seen the aftermath in my own workshop, and it is not a pleasant conversation to have with someone who bought the vehicle 6 months earlier thinking they'd found a deal. Volkswagen also copped that record $125 million ACCC penalty for diesel emissions cheating, and while that's a broader brand story, it didn't help owner confidence in anything wearing a TDI badge during that period. Know the engine code, know the service history, know when the chain was last inspected. If you can't get clear answers on all three, walk away. Catastrophic tier. I'd tell my brother to walk straight past it. Number 5, the Nissan Navara D40 YD25. We are in genuine catastrophic territory now, and the D40 with the YD25 diesel earned its place here. Honestly, the YD25 has a single row timing chain that is documented in multiple countries across multiple owner forums and mechanic communities to stretch. And when it stretches far enough, it doesn't give you warning, it snaps. And when it snaps, the valves meet the pistons and the engine is done. Completely, terminally, expensively. This is not a rare failure. This is not a 1 in 1,000 unlucky story. This is a known, documented, discussed, openly in the trade failure mode that the people selling you these used vehicles know about and will not mention. I'm mentioning it now. If you are looking at a used D40 Navara with the YD25 diesel, you are looking at a vehicle with a timing chain that could snap and destroy the engine without warning. That is a catastrophic risk on a vehicle that the seller will price as if it's a bargain. It is not a bargain, it is a liability. Nissan never issued a wide recall on this issue in Australia. They quietly updated the chain spec on later builds, but the earlier ones are still out there and they are still being sold, and they will keep snapping until someone who knows better says it loudly enough. Consider this me saying it loudly. Number 4, the Ford Ranger PX1 power shift. I want to read you something first. The ACCC fined Ford Motor Company of Australia $10 million, not for the gearbox failing. Every manufacturer has had a gearbox fail, for telling customers it was their driving style that caused it. $10 million for blaming the people who trusted them. The power shift dual clutch gearbox fitted to the PX1 Ranger, along with the Fiesta, Focus, and EcoSport of that era, had a dry clutch design that was not suited to Australian driving conditions, particularly the kind of low-speed, stop-start manoeuvring that a working ute does every single day. It shuddered. It hesitated. It slipped. And Ford's official response, for years, was to tell owners they were driving wrong. The full federal court finding makes for grim reading if you've got an afternoon and a strong cup of tea. Ford eventually paid out. Owners eventually got remedies, but the used market is still full of PX1 Rangers with this gearbox, and some of them are being sold by people who either don't know the history or know it very well and are hoping you don't. The modern Ranger is a completely different story, and I've said that publicly. The current generation is the best-selling vehicle in the country for good reason. But the PX1 PowerShift is not the modern Ranger. Know what you're looking at before you sign. The gearbox code matters. The generation matters. The history matters. Number 3, the Holden Colorado RG series. There's a particular sadness to this one, and I'm allowed to feel it because I grew up watching people buy Holdens the way you buy something you trust completely. The RG Colorado ran from 2012 until Holden closed in 2020, and in those 8 years, it racked up a reliability record that the brand frankly didn't deserve as its final chapter. The 2.8 Duramax diesel in the RG Colorado had a well-documented problem with its emissions system, specifically the diesel particulate filter and the exhaust gas recirculation system working against each other in a way that caused carbon buildup, power loss, and in some cases, catastrophic engine damage. Owners in regional and outback Australia, exactly the people who buy working utes, were getting hit hardest because short trip driving never gave the filter a chance to regenerate properly. And there were also reported issues with the automatic transmission on certain models, and the timing chain on some variants developed wear patterns that mechanics in the trade learned to watch for. But here's what makes this truly catastrophic rather than just expensive. Holden is gone, the dealer network is gone, parts are becoming harder to source and more expensive as each year passes, and the vehicles themselves are depreciating toward a floor where repair bills start exceeding the vehicle's value. A broken RG Colorado in 2026 is not a vehicle with a clear repair pathway. It's a very stressful situation. A lot of loyal Holden customers are living it right now, and it is genuinely not fair. Number 2. The Mitsubishi Triton ML and MN. The generation before the MQ I've already covered, running from 2006 to 2015, and yes, that's nearly a decade of production, which means there are a lot of them out there. And the reason I've put this above the Colorado, above the Navara D40, and sitting right at the edge of the top spot, is the combination of factors rather than one single catastrophic failure. The ML and MN Triton had a timing chain with a top guide wear issue I've mentioned before in other videos. That guide wears down, the chain gets slack, the engine management system starts fighting itself, and eventually, if it's not caught, the chain goes. That alone would be enough for an entry on this list. But add to that the 3.24 M41 diesel's reputation for injector seat, leaks in poorly maintained examples. Add the fact that a lot of these were used hard as genuine working utes and not always serviced on time. Add the fact that they're old enough now that full service histories are becoming rare, and you have a recipe for a very bad used car experience. Here's the thing that makes me most frustrated about the ML and MN Triton. The engine underneath, when it was looked after properly, was genuinely tough. I've seen them go 300,000 kilometers without drama. But the margin for neglect was very thin, and second-hand buyers don't always know if the previous owner cleared that bar. If you're buying one, get a full inspection from a mechanic who knows these engines specifically. Not a general inspection, a specific one, because the difference between a good one and a bad one is not visible from the outside. Number 1, the Nissan Navara D22 with the 3-litre ZD30. I've been asked about this one more times than I can count, usually by someone who's already bought it and is looking for reassurance. I'm sorry, I can't give you that. The ZD30 diesel is arguably the most documented catastrophic failure engine in Australian ute history. That's not hyperbole, that's 32 years of workshop experience and a trade full of mechanics who will all tell you the same thing the moment you mention the engine code. Here's what happens. The ZD30 runs an injection pump that is under-lubricated relative to its operating demands. When that pump fails, and it fails at a rate that no honest person in the trade will call rare, it sends metal debris through the fuel system, into the injectors, into the fuel lines, into everything downstream. You don't just replace the pump, you replace the pump, the injectors, the fuel lines, and you hope the debris didn't travel anywhere it shouldn't have. The full repair bill on a catastrophic ZD30 failure can approach or exceed the vehicle's entire market value. I've seen it more than once. Nissan updated the ZD30 through its production life, and some of the later variants are more manageable, but the earlier ones, particularly the pre-common rail versions in the D22 Navara, are ticking clocks, not might fail, will eventually fail. The only question is whether it happens on your watch or the next owner's watch. And here's the part that keeps this at number 1 above everything else on this list. The D22 Navara with the ZD30 has a cult following. Genuinely. There are forums full of passionate owners who love these vehicles, and I understand why, because apart from the engine, the D22 is a simple, honest, tough old ute. but that cult following means they are actively defended, sometimes aggressively, online, which means new buyers searching for information find a wall of passionate owners telling them the ZD30 is fine before they find the mechanics quietly telling them it isn't. I am one of the mechanics telling you it isn't. Walk straight past it. If you love the D22, put a TD42 petrol or a different diesel in it and drive it forever. But do not buy a ZD30 in 2026 on the second-hand market and expect a happy ending. The odds are not with you. The fair go section. What to buy instead? Right. You've sat through 15 reasons to be careful, so you've earned 15 seconds of optimism. If you want a ute that simply works, the current Isuzu D-Max with the updated 4JJ1 diesel is as close to bulletproof as the modern market offers. Simple engine, truck heritage, outstanding long-term owner reports. Buy it, service it correctly, give it regular highway runs to keep the DPF happy, and it will embarrass vehicles twice its price. The current Mitsubishi Triton, the latest generation, is a redemption story that's actually working. 10-year warranty if you service with them, massively improved safety rating, and Mitsubishi's diesel knowledge hasn't gone anywhere. The modern Ford Ranger current generation is the best-selling vehicle in the country for real reasons. Just know the PX1 history and make sure you're not accidentally buying it. And Kia, I know, your old man's voice is in your head right now. In Australia's own 2025 reliability study, Kia finished 5th overall, ahead of Toyota, 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty with no servicing strings attached. Modern Kia is not a gamble. It is smart money, and the data backs that up whether you like it or not. Toyota Hilux, current generation, post-2020, with the DPF history clarified, still one of the best decisions you can make. Just buy it with your eyes open, not because of the badge, because of the engineering and the network behind it. There's your 15. From the unproven optimism of the Canon at the bottom to the mechanical heartbreak of the ZD30 at the top, this list exists for one reason, because nobody in that showroom is going to tell you any of it. The brochure is going to be full color and laminated, and it will mention the tow rating and the cup holders and the reversing camera. And it will not say a single word about timing chain guides, injection pump debris, or what happens to resale when a manufacturer exits the market entirely. That's what this channel is for, a mechanic with nothing to sell and a long memory. Now I want to hear from you, because you lot always know things I don't. Which ute on this list have you owned? Did it earn its place? Or do you reckon I've been unfair? And most importantly, did you see the problem coming, or did it find you first? Drop it in the comments. I read them all. Fair warning, I'll argue with a few of you, especially about the ZD30. I always do. If a mechanic telling you the truth with nothing to sell is worth something to you, you know what to do. Look after yourselves. Buy the track record, not the badge.